A garden and a pool are for the outdoors what a kitchen and a bathroom are for the indoors. They're the wow factor, and they are what gives purpose to a home. They increase the value of the property, but they're also the main reason why family and friends want to come over. They are also notoriously hard to get right, especially when there's multiple companies involved working in silos with frequent breakdowns of communication, and that can lead to disparate interpretations to what really should be a unified vision, a vision that is derived from a well thought out design concept. But the reality is that a lot of the times landscape design concepts lack the required detail, measurements, heights, and quantities to accurately plan, price, and build a backyard transformation. This then leads to costly mistakes, an excess of man hours spent on solving the problem on the ground, and having to retroactively come up with solutions to problems that could have been avoided. These mistakes and inefficiencies end up either costing the customer or the contractor, and landscape designers get a bad rap. My job is to resolve those issues before the first shovel hits the ground. Hello, I'm Alex Hildebrand, and in this video, I'll walk you through how I help a landscape company confidently plan, price, and deliver a complex pool project in Auckland, New Zealand for a young couple that needed to gain confidence with the contractor to build them their dream transformation. I'll show you how I produce accurate plans and visuals with all the necessary information to build trust with the client, help sell the project, and make it profitable. At the start of 2026, I was approached by my client, a young family who had recently moved into their home, and while they loved everything about the newly renovated space, what it lacked was an outdoor space that would invite them to go play, entertain, and relax outside. This was such an important project to them because having two boys and with another daughter on the way, their inside spaces were going to get crammed fairly quickly, and it was important to them to keep the playful chaos outside. Now, they had been approached by a number of fiberglass pool companies in the past, and while they'd promised them the world, unfortunately they couldn't deliver, and that was due to a number of factors. One, being access to the site was near impossible, and they also had to deal with a neighbor who was unwilling to lend them access to their driveway to bring material in and out. Trust was their number one decision-making factor. Since they had been let down in the past, they needed a strategic partner to back them up and provide feasible solutions. They wanted a pool big enough to swim and play in with a lounge area, and for the flow to feel right, meaning that they wanted their journey to the pool to be short and direct, since that's the route that enthusiastic kids would probably take. And they didn't want to sacrifice too much of their existing lawn. And lastly, they wanted for their space to be maintained easily and to be kept tidy. Visual appeal was important to them, and they didn't want to compromise on the quality of how the place looked. Now, before I design anything, I have to understand the limitations and set a few design challenges. First, I had to design the space around the constraints of what was happening below the surface. With the site being on a historic lava field, I had to get a geotech report to understand where and at what depth we would hit volcanic rock, which would determine the placement of the pool. Second, as I mentioned previously, access to the backyard was restricted by a 1.5 meter wide path along the side and a reluctant neighbor to open up their driveway, meaning that the solution would have to either involve a crane or multiple smaller diggers. And third, to comply with the local permeability, building, and biodiversity regulations, I wanted to turn the uniform border planting into a diverse and multi-layered planting scheme that would act as a wildlife corridor, slow water down, and allow it to percolate into the soil. So, with these objectives set, I start the design process. After a thorough site measure, obtaining the property files and consulting with a geotech engineer and getting their site survey data, I import that into Vectorworks to create an accurate representation of the site model, the location of the existing structures, like the retaining walls, and the house. This step is crucial as it allows me to get a better feel for the site, its slope, the sun exposure, and the environmental factors that would influence the design. A comprehensive design isn't a pretty picture, it's an informed decision. So here's what I learned from the initial research phase. The geologic makeup of the soil had volcanic rock at varying depths. All except for the eastern side of the backyard, where rock was found at around 1.4 meters at the lower lying end of the slope and even deeper towards the higher end of the slope. This meant that part of the pool would have to be slightly above ground, and the remaining side would need to be cut back to an extent to blend in with the proposed deck. Exploring some iterations, the client and I land on a final layout that would work with the site. It would create a direct and natural flow into the pool area and complies with the relevant building regulations. A series of floating deck platforms seamlessly integrate with the existing retaining wall and gradually make their way up toward the rear of the property. The middle platform houses the pool, which, because of the access being so tight, needed to be a custom concrete pool rather than a fiberglass pool, which we couldn't crane in. Making your way past the pool, up 2 steps, you reach the veranda and lounge area. A modern batten look with integrated seating and storage looks out towards the house, visually connected by the pool. And lastly, we frame and soften the structures with a low native planting palette to break them up and give each space its own purpose. Along the sides and the rear of the boundary, I suggest to plant a multi-layered canopy of Nikau palms, coprosma shrubs, manuka trees and ground cover to grow a diverse root structure, to penetrate the ground and to provide a habitat for pollinators. This would aid to turn their garden into part of a wider wildlife corridor in Auckland and to improve the permeability of the soil. A thorough design process protects the client's investment, the contractor's profitability. And that was precisely one of the biggest concerns for the client and for the building company. Throughout the process, I work efficiently and clearly in 3D, utilizing the capabilities of Vectorworks to its fullest potential and ensuring that whatever I propose would align with their budget as a paramount. I allocate ballpark figures to objects and run reports on total cost estimates as I go along. This allows me to think on my feet and adjust either quantities or finishes so that the final proposal matches the client's expectations and gives the builder the confidence to price the project without having to compromise on time and quality. Measure twice, document once. Efficiency isn't just about speed, it's about the reduction of waste. Bespoke solutions like the veranda are detailed enough to not have to figure out the construction process on site, saving labor hours. Take the seating detail. The drawings specify the batten alignment so that the builder doesn't have to eyeball the lines. And because I provide exact quantity reports for concrete, timber, and cut and fill, the contractor can quote with accuracy. This is how my design plans move from being an expense on a project to a reassurance policy for the client and a profit center for the builder. With a matched budget and a happy client, I then provide the builder with my design to build package, which includes a site establishment plan highlighting access, items to be demolished and vegetations to be removed, a mood board or lookbook to illustrate materials, colors, finishes, and planting themes, the concept plan, which is annotated with any information that the builder might need to know prior for quoting. This plan also includes measurements and levels, both finished levels, reduced levels, and cut and fill volumes from the excavation. Detailed construction drawings, the planting plan with layouts, quantities, grades, and alternatives. And finally, because I've modeled everything already, I provide 3D renders to help sell the project. The result is a space that feels inevitable. It looks like it was always meant to be there because it was the logic of the design, dictated by the site conditions. It works with the site, not against it. It also goes to show that great design and proper planning go hand in hand. It builds trust between the contractor and the client, and it sets the project up for success. I plan to share more updates of my projects and processes on this channel. If you'd like to see more content like this, let me know in the comments and subscribe to follow along. If you have any questions, please reach out and ask, and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you for watching. Bye.